The Simpsons. Dun, 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 do, 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 do. Hey guys, Steve-O here from Movies and TVs on the ball. Welcome to another Simpsons episode. We're talking about season 9, episode 10. Oh no, season 10, episode 10. Viva Ned FLanders. This is the first episode in a two-parter, but the two-parter didn't take place till season 13.
Okay.
So there's one called the Blunder Years, where Homer and they get into a fight over Monopoly. You have to go to jail, and their angel Gabriel, or their social worker Gabriel, who Homer thinks is an angel. So they spend like the first half of the first half of the episode enjoying like trying to reconnect as a family, and the middle half she shows back up, and the Vegas wives show
Oh,
back
it's
up.
Vegas.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. So that is that's sort of that's the sequel to this episode.
Okay.
But this episode was kind of this is sort of like I saw this in reruns. I mean, when it's not as like a classic as I remember, but is it? But this is your first time watching it.
Yeah, I'd never seen this episode before.
What was your kind of first impression, Jay?
Uh, it wasn't too bad. I guess I learned more about Ned Flanders than didn't know. I didn't know he was 60 years old.
60-year old. That was
Yeah.
kind of the thing, is like um, and so the way the episode starts out is Ned is at church, and well, he's just kind of spending his like weekend, and Homer notices that he's getting senior citizen discounts at car washes and oil
Right.
changes, and can cut through lines. And Homer kind of talks to Ned and says, Ned, how is it that you get all this like free publicity, this stuff? And he kind of backs down and says, well, I'm 60, which makes sense because his parents were kind of hippies, so it kind of. And they ask him, so you've never done anything wrong? And he's like, well, you know, or you know,
Yeah, I think my favorite when he's saying is like he like peanut butter's too like out there for him. Like he just likes to have white bread and water
white bread with
and
water
dipping.
and dip in water. And but everyone like asks him, but you've never done this? You never been in you never, like Bart says, you never snuck out of church to steal some
Break into cars.
break into cars? No, I've not done any of that. You name it, I haven't done it.
Right.
And so Homer gets an idea that he wants Ned to kind of live a little. So he ends up, quote unquote. Well, what's funny is Ned starts kind of contemplating the fact that his life he hasn't done anything exciting. Like he comes down from breakfast and he says, "I've not
Trim
trimmed
this.
my trimming my mustache.
Right.
What do you think about that?" And Maud is like, "It's the same Netty Betty that I've always known." And he's like, "Well, I'm not like wearing a tie or something like that." And then he looks outside and he sees Homer. He's standing next to the
He's on top of his
he's
roof.
on top of his roof. And as he's on top of his roof, he he hears or he's barbecuing,
Right.
and he's like, Bart, a little bit more fire, a little bit more wood, a little bit more
But it's
wood.
like it's gasoline.
No, a little more gasoline, no more gasoline. Yeah. And Homer and this kind of inspires Ned
Right.
to start his own, become a kind of live
Homer's disciple.
Homer's disciple, and so he ends up, and he ends up um, taking Homer, or Homer ends up taking Ned to Vegas, but he kind of tries to like, I he gets him in the car and he says, "We're going." He's like, "Where are we going?" And he's like, he doesn't tell him where he's going, and he says, "We're going to the most exciting place in the world, world." And he says, "I guess escape isn't impossible. Isn't impossible." And Homer and Ned lifts the seat up, and he lifts the door handle up. Says, "Oh, I've got it." And he's like, so they go to Vegas.
Right.
What was your I guess so they go to Vegas, and then I'll let you take the next page.
Yeah. So they go to Vegas. Trying to remember. I guess they first are looking at a like an evil Knievel type guy.
Yeah, it's Lance Murdoch.
Okay.
And Lance Murdoch was in Bart the Daredevil.
Okay.
He was the one that kind of inspired Bart to become a daredevil, and he says, "I'm going to jump Springfield Gorge," and
Okay.
and remember that episode
No, I don't remember that
where
one.
he like goes, "First off, I want to say I really like the." Yeah. So anyway, so they end up going, and so in back in, so that was Bart the Daredevil. Now in this one, in Viva Ned FLanders, Homer is kind of selected out of the. It's like, who's going to be the daring person to stand next to the X? And he's like, the X with the red paint. And Lance Murdoch says, "Yeah, yeah, paint. Yeah, that's what it is."
Right.
Um, and so he goes, lies down, and then Lance Murdoch, they put a
Safe over his head.
eh,
Trying to remember what else.
they put a safe over his head, and they said like there's like a ring of fire, then a ring of
Ice.
ice, and
Like
then
dog
over the
food.
dog dew, and like no one the sharks were, no,
I don't think so. No.
no, but so there were the dog dew, and so Homer lies on the X marks the spot, and he's got they put a safe on his head, and he and drives down the
Ramp.
drives down
Yeah.
the ramp, and as he's driving down the ramp, he can successfully open up cage,
Right.
um, the cage and or the vault, and past and then Homer's lying there, and as he's lying there, he looks up and goes, "Bar, oh, Bart, or Ned, don't touch my beard." And when he gets up, he says, "Lay down." And Lance Murdoch says, "Lay down, lay down."
Oh,
And he's like, he's all right. And I think this might be the second time we saw Lance Murdoch since the Daredevil,
okay.
Bart the Daredevil, I think. But so anyway, um, so he's like, so so he gets up. He says he's all right, and Homer like goes, just drinks his beer and says, "All right, we're going to go. Let's go to play some
And gamble.
gamble."
Yeah.
So they go to gamble. You want to take over the gamble?
Yeah. So he's trying to get Ned to pick his roulette numbers. And so Ned immediately tries to quote scripture, and Simpson, like Homer, just grabs the first number he says and bets all his money.
It's only on seven,
Right.
and then no, you know, I like the fact that he like before he like which he's like, "Dear Lord, what should I do?" And then he hears a voice, and then it's the security guard says, "Keep gambling." And
Right.
he's like, "What's that?" "Keep gaming." It means keep gambling. And he's like, "Sure, will do." And he's like, "One betting disc, please." And then he's like, "One betting disc." And he takes out, and he's like, "Where's your?" And he's like,
Homer just like dumped out his
dumps
wallet
all his wallet. He loses all his money.
immediately, and then so like they lost all the money. Then Homer's like, okay, now let's go drinking.
Drinking. So this is a lot. So I love the fact he goes drinking, and he's sitting there, and he's like going, he's like, "Where's your?" He talked about what was it?
They're
He's like,
trying to
"Where's?"
like go over their drinks, and like first Ned's like a Virgin Shirley
No, no,
Temple.
no, no.
Oh,
He
okay.
asked he before that. He's like he asked them about like risk taking and living life, and he says
Oh, I can't remember.
he says yeah something. It's he said something like that, or he no he talks about where he talks about like where's your risk is taking the risk, and he says where's your notebook? He says you threw it out your window, and then he's like tisk tisk tisk, and then Homer goes oh slave girl, and there's these waitresses, and she comes up to him and says more libations, my dear master, and I'm like what? She's like more booze. He's like yes. And what do you want, Ned? And Ned's like, I'll have a Shirley. He gets all these sort of like
Non-alcoholic drink.
non-alcoholic drinks, and then he says he makes up for it and says, "I'll have a white wine spritzer, spritzer, spritzer," and then they paint the town. And what I love about when they paint when after we don't see them doing it, but they kind of go in the whirlwind, kind of time loop,
Right,
and Homer and Ned are sitting in a jacuzzi,
right.
and they've like have like cowboy hats and
It's essentially like the Hangover movie.
yeah, pretty much. It's pretty
Yeah,
much it is like the Hangover movie, Jay. Um, so they do the Hangover, um, or they get up and they're in a hot tub. And he's like, and Ned's like, oh, oh, like, oh, my head hurts. I have a throbbing headache. Uh, I haven't slept in days, and my mouth tastes like vomit. What is he?
then he's excited because he's had fun.
Yeah. He's like, my mouth tastes like vomit, and I don't remember a thing.
Right.
Oh my god, I'm starting living again. And what do you living again? And Homer gets up and he looks so defeated and says, "Welcome to my world." And he's like, "Oh, we've had so much fun," or what was he saying?
I can't remember if he's like starts thanking Homer for.
Oh, thank you, Homer, for everything. And then Homer and then he's like, "Who are you?" "I'm Mrs. Ned FLanders."
Right.
And Homer starts going like, "Ha ha ha! Way to go, Flanders!" And then Amber, I think is her name, says, "And I'm Mrs. Homer Simpson." And so they go, and so they kind of like, they're like shocked,
Right.
and then uh, they're shocked, and they are, so they're like going, "Ladies, ladies, we're not, um, you know." They reveal that they don't have that they're happily married, and but the Amber and who was the other one?
I can't remember their
Amber
names. Yeah.
Amber says, but you can't be happy with them, and Homer says, oh, and then Ned and Homer they go to the buffet line or
Right.
breakfast thing, and
They sort of plan their escape.
well, they plan their escape, and Ned says, "How about we make the girls some omelets?" And I love the fact that as he's making the omelet, as Homer's making the omelets, Ned's like, "What am I gonna do? What do I do? What about Rod and Todd and Maud?" And I think it's kind of interesting that we see this is the first time Ned really sort of, lives a little.
Right.
Um, um, Lives a little and says, and I like how he's like focusing on, and Homer is just focusing on what kind of food they want for their omelet, and Homer can't remember whose wife is which.
Right.
So they end up trying. So they end up. So then Ned and Homer let Amber and Amber and the other wife.
So they just sort of run at that point.
No, no, they let him down, and they say we're happily married. And Homer. And then they yeah. Then they run and then and the and then the Vegas wives are saying our husbands are trying to ditch us, and then the security guard saying letting go of their marriage vows. This not in Las Vegas. And so they run, and we hear the Elvis Presley "Viva Las Vegas."
Right.
And so I mean, and so they end up going into they get cornered by like 6 Feet and Roy and the Tiger,
Right.
and then
They had, like the Mike Tyson guy. I can't
the
remember his name.
Dedrick Tatum.
Okay. Yeah.
Dedrick Tatum shows up, and Mike, and then the Moody Blues
Oh, right. Where's the celebrity?
and the celebrities, and he goes, "Poor Homer and Ned ditching their wives," and he's like, "Quick, the poems! It's ass kicking time!"
Right.
And so they end up getting kicked out of Las Vegas. Um, and Homer and Ned walk home, and they try to decide what they're going to do.
Right.
And then, so this, so and then in the sequel episode, about 3 seasons later, 4 seasons later, they did, they brought him back, and
To Las Vegas.
no, they come back to Springfield. The Vegas wives come back.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So it's kind of so we'll cut kind of talk about that episode next time on the Simpsons podcast. Jay, what was your thoughts on this one?
I thought it was decent. It's sort of surprising to learn that Ned was so old, but there's a couple good jokes in this one. I thought.
Yeah, and
What did you think?
I like this one. I like how it's very much like there's no B. The thing I like about this one is there's no B plot.
Right.
Most episodes of The Simpsons, there's usually like goes to, it's like Homer goes to college. It's one of those episodes. It's not like Marge, like, where Homer is doing one thing and we cut to where Lisa and Bart
Right.
and Marge are doing. I like how it's, and it gives, I also like it, the fact that it gives Homer and Ned time to sort of hang out or kind of get to know each other through this in season 9. And then I like the fact that it also kind of bites him in the ass 4 seasons later.
Right.
I like the um Homer. I like the they make fun of the I like how they make fun of the when they're trying to just when they're walking back to Springfield, they're like going, "So what do you want to? What are we going to tell our wives? Let's tell her that we got abducted by aliens, and they tried to probe you." And Homer and Ned's like, "What do they? What do they probe me?" But let me. What's your thoughts, Jay? I mean,
I like. I'm trying to remember what my favorite jokes. Um, I thought it was decent. I guess it wasn't my like most favorite episode, but I thought it was
it's
pretty good.
not like I don't think it's a really good, solid episode. It's not memorable, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but it's not like Camp Krusty or Homer goes to clown college or Homer goes to college. It's I mean I like how it just sort of comes in and says what it says. Or like it comes in and it's a pretty good standard A plot.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good time to see Homer and Ned really bond. Because if you've seen them
Yes,
in
that's true. A lot of times they're more like antagonists to each other.
antagonists to each other, yeah. I mean, well, and Homer kind of says, when in church, he's like, well, you know, because especially when he says when he kind of reveals to everybody that Ned's a senior citizen. That's kind of how it works. But I like this episode. I give it a B plus.
Okay.
It's not. I guess the reason why I'm not giving it an A is just it's memorable, but it's not as memorable. Let's say like Bart down the like Camp Krusty, that kind of thing. It's a solid episode. What about you, Jay? What do you think?
I'd probably give it a B.
B.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really so that's us talking about Viva Rock Vegas or Viva Ned Viva Ned Vegas, as I like to call it. That's kind of our look on the Simpsons episode. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. Let us know if you've seen this episode. Do you think it's a good one? Do you think it's a bad one? Did you like this one? Were you kind of surprised that they brought him back in season 13? Let me know in the comments below. As always, always keep them civil as best you can. And TV. As always, I'm Steve,
I'm Jay.
and see you at the movies. Or don't.